There we go. Welcome back to another episode, my lords, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for stopping by. I hope this day is treating you fine and dandy. If you can hear a whir underneath as I talk, it's because I have a fan right there and I refuse to turn it off. Otherwise, I will die under this heat. Slight exaggeration. Bob, how are you doing? How's life?
Yes, good. It's good to be in the UK at the moment, isn't it? It's the only place in the world where you can have a rural politician go up against a man with a bin on his head, and the man with a bin on his head gets 10,000 votes.
What a world we live in! What a world we live in!
Yeah.
I mean, it's. I saw. I think my favorite, I don't know, commentary on it, whatever I saw, was when the results came in. It was nice to see the joke candidate winning for a change. I think that was my favorite. Now, Bob, why don't you lay the groundwork for what's got to come today?
Yeah, we've got a special guest today, and I'll just give a brief introduction. I'll keep it brief because I could go on for about half the podcast introducing him. And it's good to have him on as a guest because he brings together quite a few of the things that sit at the heart of what we discuss in this podcast: people, behaviour, risk, and security. It's David Clarke, and he's a co-founder and the CSO of Guildhawk, which is a technology-led language service. But a little bit about his background. He's a former detective superintendent with the City of London Police, and that's where we know one another from. And he had many roles within that, and just two of them was he was the director of the National Fraud Intelligence Bureau, and he was also out on secondment. He worked with the United Nations in Bosnia as head of investigations. More recently, member of the Fraud Advisory Panel for many years. And also he's not adverse to doing this sort of thing because he also works as a fraud prevention commentator with the BBC and the Times. So good evening, David.
Hello, Bob.
Are you embarrassed?
Embarrassed, yeah.
Yeah. What I want to do, and we talked about this earlier, but there's a certain aspects of your work which I think would be especially relevant to what we do, and also that people who view this would be very interested in. Now, Guildhawk is a very innovative company, and and forward thinking. And one of the things that really caught my eye when I saw it a year ago, and I've had a look at some of the products that you've done, and probably more than a year ago now. It's amazing, and the way that you can use digital humans to create avatars of people that can speak in different languages and that type of thing. So can you explain to us how that came about and what did you see that developing as?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Bob, and thanks for introducing me, inviting me on as well. It's these digital human avatars are something that are particularly interesting to me. Guildhawk and our Guy Labs, which is the side I work on. Guy Labs is our in-house development team in Sheffield. We work closely with Sheffield Hallam University and backed by Innovate UK, developing language technologies. We started as a language business. So if any of you have used, linguists, I know in the police, one of our massive budgets was linguists, many of them sitting around, some of them, getting paid rather a lot to sit around. In the UN, working with linguists, same in the military where you've got linguists there, they're your eyes and ears. But it's a difficult job, and technology has been struggling to catch up, and then suddenly things have started to change. What we've been working on for a few years now, started before the pandemic, was we knew GPT was coming, so we started working in that space. That's when we did our first knowledge transfer partnership, building a secure advanced translation system that beats everything out there. It's made in Britain. It's called Guy, G-A-I, Guy Suite. Have a look online, Guy Translate. It's built on the Microsoft stack, but it does fantastic translations. Does it securely? Can put all sorts of documents in. Used mainly in regulated sectors like mining and safety and stuff. But during the pandemic, during that lockdown, we have friend Stefan Teric, who's one of the founders of one of the big AI avatar firms, which was Synthesia. If you know those, HeyGen, Synthesia, there's a couple of others, DID. But he was one of the first. They came out of connections, I think, with Imperial or somewhere else. The best lip syncing at the time. And we got chatting. And when you're in a language technology business, or languages generally anywhere in the world, you're invisible. You know, if you see linguists when we're out on investigations, the last thing, Bob, we want, isn't it, on an interview, whether you're out in the field or door-to-door investigations, or you're in the heat of a second, stage of interviewing a suspect in a serious crime. The last thing you want is a linguist who, starts doing their own interpreting or doesn't do it simultaneously. They're meant to be invisible. They're there to recite, especially with simultaneous. They are fantastic. If you see ours at conferences, I massive respect to them. But otherwise, the industry is invisible. You don't see linguists. You don't know what's happening. Where is it? Where is that data? Advanced even more. But at this time, go back to 2021, and I was really interested. I said to our team, actually, I think I really like this. I like what Synthesia have done. So we were their first partner, a corporate partner, where we actually took the product. I was chairman during the pandemic. I was chairman of the fraud advisory panel. That's a national charity, been around 30 years now. I led a thing a little in lockdown. I set up with partners the COVID-19 Fraud Watch, HMRC, Law Society, banks, and others. We met every week, a bit like this. So I used to use Zoom, sharing intelligence, feeding intelligence. If you have a look, I spoke to the Treasury Select Committee. I got a bit of a beef, got loads of people saying, why don't we do these systems? I wrote to the Chancellor saying we can stop bounce back loan fraud if we do this, this, and this. This is what we're seeing. And it was all ignored. I was very frustrated. Told everybody, Audit Commission, and here we are. Lo and behold, you're seeing stuff coming out. That's where I've written in the Times. That's where I've done that, Bob. But at that same time, I really like this for two reasons. One, it's a selfish side, really, that languages are a barrier for many British businesses, Western businesses that speak English, because you can't get out, you can't be seen. It's quite expensive still to get translation. We've got clients who spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on translation, and they still don't translate very much because it's expensive. Same with policing. So what I liked about this is a technology that you can actually record once. We were doing in green screens. We've done CEOs of firms that you would know, all very confidential, doing the secure environment. And we were all ISO 27001. So you can do them once. And I made mine. I said, all right, I'll go on record here. Have a look at it. It's out there somewhere on YouTube or outside with my one. And I was giving the AGM chairman's address. And I did a little bit. We were actually part hybrid, part in the office, but our team used my avatar to do the address, did video and what have you. And everybody said it's better than you. Doesn't. And as you gather now, I talk too much. So you could control it because you put the scripts in. Then you can have it speaking lots and lots of languages. And of course, we have our machine translation tool, which is highly accurate. So good now that it's better than a human. Actually better, and you train it with the models and so on. But we then, on the back of that, a lot of people said, this is really good, isn't it? So our CEO could record this. We can overlay onto their video. We do video production. We've got some very smart guys here in the office today making videos, training videos, and they're internal for onboarding and stuff. But we then have the video, and you'll see online with me, I think, in this room talking, in whatever, I'm stood by this screen. And then the guys, in minutes, they've got me speaking Spanish for our Spanish audience. Yeah. this is how fast it is. And I think it's wonderful. It's really good. Think about this, health and safety. We want those people on site or in the mine to understand, why are we giving them a barrier? Why do they have to read subtitles? And this was a really big success. We got asked, we've done, I say mostly mining and mine safety, but also police stuff have done it. We did the first police ones for Humberside, and they're brilliant. And they've now moved on much faster. Synthesia, they're great. We're using some other technologies as well. But they've moved on so fast. And lo and behold, what's happened? The fraudsters have realized how good they are, and they're using them as well. So what's coming next is amazing. What they're doing next is amazing. What we're doing to protect society, play catch up as always, is really exciting as well. And that's kind of where we're moving next.
Okay. Ben?
Wow, that was that. I mean, that was in depth. Thank you for that, first of all, because when it comes to that side of things, I'm an idiot. I know very little about the capability, the capacity for this kind of technology. So that was almost like a free education. Thank you, first of all, from that. Secondly, my curiosity was mostly about the fraud element. I'm my awareness of faces comes from being a super recognizer in that fraction of policing, and the jobs that you get in come paying attention to faces, and there is a lot of contention and discussion around this notion of deep fakes, and it's going to take over and it's going to ruin lives and this, that, and the other. So my curiosity is that with you being behind the curtain, do you find that with your awareness of these differences between real David and avatar David, they are easier for you to tell them apart, or are there ways and means for people to do that?
Really good question, Ben. Yeah, excellent point. I mean, you look at last year. Was it last year? Or longer than that. I did I was here in London for the ACFE Association Certified Fraud Examiners. We were talking about a bit of this. I mean, I think there's a line they often quote. When I said to the audience, say, fraud is not just an epidemic, as I'd said before the pandemic. It's now war. This is industrialized. They're using this. AI is a force for good in the right hands, and we've got loads of ways that they can be protected. But I said there that, I'll give you an example. Whilst we're talking, I said, get my team just to a bit of footage of me, and tomorrow I'll send out a link of me speaking a language. What do you want me to speak? And the panel, if it was Rachel or one of the others, said, do it in Mandarin then. It's all right, easy. That's actually an easy one for us, Thought they got for one of the really tricky languages. But our AI is really good at 70-odd languages. That means superb. Yeah. And then 11 Labs is where the voice sync comes. That's what Synthesia HeyGen use. Great British tool, 11 Labs, amazing voice copying. And it made these two avatars. Even now, when I look at them, our team put them side by side, saying something like me saying, great speak at the event yesterday. Can you guess which one's me? And then parallel is the other one going, is it me or is it him? That usual, bit like the two Ronnies comedy, which one is it? And I still look, and then eventually one of them goes, or is it me? And then speaks Mandarin. I cannot tell which one's which now. But you've got this uncanny valley thing, of this just looks too much. The human eye can pick up, and it says what to look for. I promise you now, and I've seen examples of this, not just the Hong Kong Arab case where the finance officer was tricked with some pretty rubbish avatars, and that's a cultural thing, and it was online.
Intelligence doesn't guarantee influence. If you can't communicate and do so clearly, your ideas die in translation. Productive communications teaches you how to understand behavior, how to navigate tension, and how to create real clarity in conversation. No manipulation. no scripts, just behavioral insight applied correctly. So if you want fewer misunderstandings and more control in conversation, go to omniscient-insights.com/procoms or right here.
But I've seen some recent ones with superb quality, people being changing sex, changing thing, doing real time, using Claude.
Wow.
You will not, on a call, you will not recognize them, and they will get better. So everything, I think, comes with this caveat of trust. Do you know who you're speaking to? How do you know I'm not an avatar now? I could easily be, absolutely easily be, without even knowing the questions. I could do that. We're into trust in that people here are dialing into this. We know each other. We've had communication. We're using our intelligence. But that is the absolute must. Do not trust anything until you've got the trusted network and you know the platform, blah, blah, blah. So it's going to get even more wild soon. And I promise you, I've seen it already.
I don't doubt it. I remember reading recently about the code watermark that they're starting to put forward into the text that they use. So it's not just about the little secret spaces. It's about the creation of words and specific patterns of words that go out into the watermarks and that kind of thing. I'm not expecting any kind of giving the like a magician revealing the secrets kind of thing. But is that same kind of idea, does that translate to the visual form in that there could be a watermark element to an avatar, or is it just a straight up repurposed version in the sense of it?
I mean, there's a number of really clever tools now. You've got watermarking, Synthesia, HeyGen, and others. If you see, whenever you see something on social media, there's the big tech are putting tools in Microsoft, Gemini and others, AI generated content. It can be read, the images and so on. There's also some fantastic stuff just coming out now. I mean, Modulate AI have probably got the best deepfake detection. They're coming out at MIT. There's several others who are all saying that they're even better. And I do think, those tools are going to be really good for detecting, the ability to pick up on that, have an alert. Where we're going with Guy Labs is, obviously we come from a language first, AI language first, and where I'm particularly excited about and is the large language models that are being used across systems, where the future is going. Don't get me wrong, I'm not professing to be technical. Our academics and AI people up in Sheffield and elsewhere are fantastic at this. I'm just an observer, but I know the problem that we want to solve. And it's this thing of how can we get AI to have models that help protect people and do, the reasoning. What we're looking at and the work we're doing, we've just been very honoured to be selected by the Financial Conduct Authority for the Supercharged Sandbox Cohort 2. We were selected out of, I think, 199 for 21 places. We just started. I'm really excited about this. It's a project called Accordia that Guy Labs is doing. Accordia is looking at some experimenting with inference models, the agentic AI. And what's really exciting me about this is, and I've seen it with what we're using these already in when I mentioned our language models. Why do they perform so well? Because we can get agents to be trained to infer and put things into context. Not like an LLM that gets confused and loses stuff. Worst of all, makes stuff up in the middle of a report, which a few large firms should be embarrassed about using it in that way, But imagine now, we're on the cusp of a fantastic revolution, and I'm so excited about this. 20 years, if you look back over what I've talked about, like a broken record, we're on the cusp now of our Accordia type models and agents being trained on domain specific data sets. Imagine all the best 20 or 30 detectives but all be in the interview world, with their domain specific expertise, advanced interviewer level 1 in this subject, and we've trained them all up, and they're in different languages, and they're sitting there reading, watching, and we're training that model to understand, actually, this doesn't sound right in context. Can you see? It's not just doing a translation. It's not just telling you, what the libraries of the world tell you this and a bit of slang. It's not just going to a glossary. It's going in and saying, hang on, all my agent detectives here in my pocket are saying, hang on, it's like me going to you, Bob. Bob, there's some body language they just used there. What might that mean in this term? And you say, 10 years ago, remember we had somebody in a homicide, they used a very similar thing. And I say, romance fraud, somebody said this. They've got it from that book. Bosh, context. This is going to be a game changer. Small language models, inference models with agents that all learn and they build the context. They find what's wrong. Not the big language model that says, this is close enough. I'll make something up that'll keep you happy. Rubbish.
That's really interesting. Moving a little bit away from that, I was just thinking while you were speaking is that one thing that hasn't really gone forward is this behavioural detection thing where we look for individual behaviours and the big thing for me now is certainty over uncertainty. I think when humans are doing it, it can be uncertain. And we talk about baselines and getting baselines, but for me, looking at an interaction at a certain element of it would only give you so much information. What I look for is their personal behavioural repertoire. So you need to look for a period of time, and then you can identify words that they use, behaviours that they use.
Brilliant, Bob. Yeah,
but don't even bother with saying, well, that means this, that means that. Well, all you need to know really from a investigative or in a business situation is, are they moving towards me or away from me? Valence.
Yeah.
From what you're saying, I mean, you probably know about Silent Talker that Manchester Metropolitan University developed, which was based on Ekman's facial expressions, and they've tried it at the border, EU border, and it failed miserably because there was just so many false positives because of this weird thing that most science is based on everyone looking the same, no matter where they're from.
Yeah.
I'm just, the sort of point I'm getting to is from what you're saying there with the language models, a system like that where, I'm not confident, but I think over a period of time, I could spot the difference between the real David and the avatar David, if you got enough time, and I could work out the repertoire from the real one and then place it against the avatar.
Well, let me ask you, Bob, that's brilliant. Let me turn it on you. What is it? What process and what is it you would have from that sufficient time that would make you realize it's the real me, not, an avatar or somebody pretending to be me? What is it?
I think it would be things that, well, for one, I'm trying to think as I was talking, but emphasis would be one.
Yeah.
Words would be another. It also, it's, and this is the thing, is that, I could sit here and say, well, it's crossing your arms, but that's rubbish. It is, you'd have to be watching it, and it'd be hard for me to say here, this is what I'd look for, because it'd be unique to that person, because I believe, although we've got shared behaviours, we do have individual behaviours that are unique to us.
Yeah.
They may be the ones that over a period of time you could see, and they might, in an avatar, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, but they may look a little bit more clunky in that sort of scenario. Ben, what do you think?
I mean, it's hard. It's an adjacent idea towards things like gait analysis, isn't it? You can't properly mimic someone's walk because it's their walk. They have to compensate with, I don't know, maybe they've got a pain in their ankle, or they had a hip replaced, or they've got a confident stride a la Starsky and Hutch or something like that. And that's one of the syntax discussions that is so individual. I mean, I imagine it could be, there is a hypothesis that you could develop to replicate that somehow, but it would depend on how much data you could feed the model in question to help it learn those idiosyncrasies. And yeah, I think it's an interesting dynamic. It's like I always think that sometimes I put my arms behind my head, but so as it's a fake video, again, I don't know what the right term is. Please don't let my lack of terminology throw it up. As it's a fake video, would it mean that it wouldn't be able to replicate the pressure that it would put towards the start? It would just hold it straight in those situations. I think it's an interesting idea. There's things towards the human to human interaction that I know I don't always take stock of like that. It's like James Pennebaker's work on pronoun usage. He would talk about in relation to large language models specifically. If you count the pronouns and cross-check it against this other type of thing, like who's counting pronouns during a conversation? Rain Man, maybe. Who knows?
Well, that's it, and that's a great point, Ben. Is on that. This is the wonderful magic that's coming from the agents. Is yes, they can be counting. Be doing it real time. This is what we're doing in the sandbox. And bear in mind, it's a small window, but I'm really excited about this. We're already assembling some terrific people, and I'm getting some fabulous, scientists together on this. But imagine now, like we're doing, our heritage comes from the language, and our language models, our translation models are superb. Why are they better than humans? Because you've got those agents sitting over the top that learn their subject. They know it better than the human, but they don't miss stuff. The small language model means that I haven't got all that latency of a large language model. It's tied down, it's fast. But then taking all this learning, to then say, right, what does, like you said, Bob, at the border, if we're looking at, nonverbal communication and people's gait, as you were saying, Ben, that fantastic technology that he's now has very little false positive. Bring it into this world, the conversational analytics and the forensics. What can we take? What is it that's in, your head, Ben, your head, Bob, with all your years, your decades of learning and interviewing and meeting people and investigating, put it all into these agents, and in real time or very near real time saying, is this what I'm seeing and hearing? Does it look right? And the reason this is so exciting is because you mentioned one thing, put your hands behind your back. One of the great things to do with avatars is just that. The basic tricks at the moment, ask it to do this, because Synthesia and others, they're bringing in motion, longer you have, they can get a bit more. You can alter the avatar real time. You can do a bit of movement. But if you do this, you'll lose bits of it. Sometimes a finger extra finger will appear. Put it over your mouth, it loses bits of the avatar, But they'll fix this already. It's done. They've got away with it. A better thing to do is that thing of learning, quiz. Oh, right. So where are you from, Bob? You're calling in from China. What's your view on President Xi Jinping then? Yeah. And now, what am I expecting from an answer here? It's things where you immediately get people quizzed. But then, best of all, this is where I'm going. I think the avatars are fantastic. I think they've got great learning to do because they help with training and help keep people safe. Absolutely. In the criminal world, whether it's an avatar or online communications or a phone call, how can we this is what we're going to experiment with, which is so exciting. Can we get those agents with a model that's trained with all our knowledge to say, in this context, I'm hearing language that's starting to sound like coercion. it sounds like they're leading up to talk, because the way you're saying it is different to the way you'd say it if you were just making a complaint or you're trying to report a fraud. You're actually trying to use coercive language here because of this, and this. And the criminals, as we know, they've got all their scripts. We've seen them, Bob, haven't we? All those books, they have, particularly for romance fraud. This is have their scripts. If we are taking all our knowledge, we're better than them. We know how to interview better and get them better than they do when they try to target people who are under stress and what have you, or training those. And I'm really excited because our models, I think we're going to be able to crack this. I really do. Brilliant. Not overnight, but I'm so excited. And I think it's the other thing that I'm very excited about is the human brain's synapses. What happens to the brain? I mean, we won't be doing this in our bit here, but maybe we will. I'm speaking to a scientist on this, looking at what happens to the brain when this coercion starts. Now, imagine a year or two down the road here where, Bob, imagine this in interview with a suspect or a witness, victim, the ability to track in real time what's happening to the synapses. Because you know what happens with the synapses when people are under stress, they start damaging them. What the fraudsters try to do, they try to damage the person's synapses. So they seize up, they go into panic mode, fight or flight, and they start doing things they shouldn't do. We could be doing here, and I'm envisaging, my prediction for the next 2 years is we will get there. We will build small models with agents that can help to counter that. We'll reverse engineer what the criminals are doing. But gosh, this is going to be powerful. We've got to do it in a controlled way, which is why I'm so honoured that we're in the sandbox, you know.
Yeah. Interesting, because you talk about the fight or flight, but also, you know, because I've done it with penetration testing and things like that. A lot of it is the opposite to that. It's building trust.
Yeah.
But I can see, because the way you do that is you become like them, so you start mirroring their words and this type of thing towards them. And so I could see that could be a language model that you could use, and that is maybe a good way.
Well, you taught me something, Bob. I remember, you know, after I left the police, you taught me a lot when I was in the police, actually. You doing my source handling course and that. But you taught me something afterwards, which is when I think you were working with, was it Volvo trucks and stuff with their sales teams, and you were picking up, I think, when you did training for our sales people within Guildhawk and that, and you were talking about that mirroring language. I won't name who the company was, because I remember you saying it, but you were talking about a specific thing where you'd done a bit of research on somebody and you were dropping in a few keywords about a particular sport, knowing that this individual, this is their love, and it worked. And Bosch. Now, I that really resonated with me. I use that regularly, you know. And you think, obviously, I hope I'm doing it in a polite way. I'm not trying to coerce it. Try to do it in a rapport building, and you know, and I think cultural intelligence, isn't it? Our business in Hong Kong, the stuff we do in Hong Kong, safety. It's polite to learn about things, learn about people, brush up on something. And I'd never lie, but if I've got something, you know, I love reading. I'm particularly interested in Sherlock Holmes and stuff. I know that person is. Let's talk about that, you know. But to get that rapport, but how do you teach the little specific language model to say, right, let's adapt it now for this specific thing, which is where we've got call handlers within the fraud team who may be coerced because of their own predisposition of what they love football, they follow West Ham. Right. Let's customize a little model to help that little team, so that if somebody tries to coerce them, the fraudster comes in, you know, you're a West Ham fan. Did you see the match? Yeah, the building trust. Normally that wouldn't matter, would it? What would I say? Yeah, but in that setup, the little small language model has now been tweaked to the specific team, saying, used in this context, why on earth have you started talking about that? You could have only got it from my social media. You've actually gone further and we're on a professional call. You're trying. This might be coercive, or it might not. You know, fascinating, isn't it?
It is
Yes.
extremely fascinating. Ben, you got anything?
Yeah, I mean, slightly coming back to language specifically, and I like to learn a lot of languages, and I always find that one of the ways that I'm tripped up during learning is when it comes to slang. It seems like every country has their own unique, specific words and ways that they inflect certain ideas. Like in the UK, I counted at least 30 different versions of the word pissed. Just in 30 different situations where that comes up and it means completely different things. Do you find that dealing with that kind of language specifically is like a Rubik's Cube within a Rubik's Cube?
Yeah, Ben, that's a brilliant point. You've raised a fantastic point. I had the conversation this morning with somebody who's going to help us with this, and yesterday with an academic friend, if you know, with Aston University. This is exactly the area, because some people have asked us this. They asked me a long time, you're going to do this, you're looking at specific small language models, can you do this in here? What about slang? So whoa, just come back a little bit. Yes, we can, but why? A lot of people, well, what's language technology business got to do with this? AI and this natural neural language processing and all the rest of the NLP stuff all comes from the language world. Trying to decipher what languages is. Our second knowledge transfer partnership that we've done, got a white paper will come out soon. It is amazing, putting things into context. Is, why does this word here mean something different in this language, or even in context? We've had to deal with that for a long time. The reason that our models are so good in the translation is because they're specific, not in everywhere, some media stuff, but when you put them into proprietary areas and legal, because they've been trained to do that, they understand the language in context. When you come to slang, like the criminals, traffickers, and others are all using this code. Bob, from the fraud days, villains, insiders using coded language in it. Oh, yeah. Ben, Bob, let's go to L3 now. L3, yeah. I'll see you at L3. They're coded. We cannot decipher it, nor can LLMs. Yeah. And I've got a bit of experiment I'm going to put out next week. I'll show you an example of this that the team are doing. It's wonderful. Just how confused LLMs get, and they'll throw you off the scent. However, think of it the other way. When you use the human expertise like you've got, like many of our detectives and forensic scientists have got, use the human touch to train an agent. Wow. It's like having an army of detectives with you, isn't it? Not just me anymore. In the interview room with somebody giving me a bit of a tip or criticism in the room next door. They're all there, and this is coming to interview rooms, coming to interview teams and fraud prevention teams globally very soon. I'm so excited. But it'll all be down to small models. To decode this. It is going to be amazing. We're finally going to be able to catch up with the criminals and play them at their own game.
Fantastic. Level that playing field. Now, just to honor your time, so we've got a kind of a tradition in closing sentiments where we push each individual person that gives their free time for a kind of a final thought. So Jerry Springer's final thoughts on the topic of things that we've been talking about. What would yours be for the things that we've been speaking about this evening?
Sorry, what was the last bit there? Sorry.
What would your final thoughts be based on the topics we've been talking about this evening? What would you like as a parting sentiment for viewers to go away with knowing?
Don't be frightened of AI. Beautiful. And the reason I'd say that is the world has had AI unleashed like Pandora's box. But if you listen to a lovely book, my friend Ivan Yong in Hong Kong, look at his with Pandora's box. When in ancient Greek mythology there, when Pandora opened that box and let all the horrors of the world out, murder, death, the horrors, she managed to close it just in time to keep one thing in there: hope. And we've got to all come together. There's more good people in the world. You know that. We all know this, Bob, don't we? Whenever we're out, there are far more good people than there are bad. And hope is always there. It's our job to restore it. And how we do that, talks like this. I also think, and the other thing of restoring hope, laughter. Let's get our sense of humor back. Let's not be frightened. The great thing that makes us human, not LLMs and stuff, is we have humor where we can do ridiculous things and fun, which avatars and others and AI can't. So there is hope, and that would be the thing I'd really say to everybody. Embrace it, but let's remember we're human.
Love that. Bob, how about you?
Well, when we were talking and we talked about these translators that we used to get in the police, I can remember one thing that really sprang to mind is you had a list of them, and you'd start at the top and you'd work your way down, and the ones nearer the bottom were probably ones that weren't used that often for very good reasons sometimes. And I can remember it was a Chinese dialect. I can't remember what it was, but we got an interpreter, and I asked a question, and the interpreter said it in their language, and then the guy went on for about 4 minutes replying to it, and the interpreter said no.
That's it. Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Like a
you've
badly
seen
dubbed
it.
movie. Amazing. Now, we're going to leave David's information in the description box below when this goes out, so you can get in touch and follow along with his work as and when these wonderful things see the light of day. But with that in mind, my lords, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for stopping by and sharing this discussion with us. Don't be strangers. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you all again very soon.
Thanks a lot. Great to see you guys. Thanks, Bob. See you, Ben.
Bye-bye.